It's 1 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is the monthly meeting of the Town of Dayton Stormwater Committee. It's Wednesday, March 20th, 2024. We are in the upper level meeting room at the Old Town Hall, 1111 Somerset Avenue, Dayton. This is a public meeting being video and audio recorded for posting to YouTube. We are both live and using Zoom. I'm not going to read all of that because nobody ever writes it down and understands it anyhow. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Attendance, roll call. Mr. Aguirre.
Here.
Mr. Ferry.
Yeah.
Ms. Caldonia. Oh, she must be on the phone. I know she's here. Mr. Woods.
Yeah.
And Nancy Goulart's here. Heather, did you get the names of everyone that's here?
Here.
Okay, Lisa.
Yes. Oh, it's over here.
Yes, we have everyone's name.
Thank you.
Weston and Sampson Engineering Projects. I thought Jim or one of the Jims was going to.
He's coming.
They are
I just spoke with him. He's coming.
coming on Zoom?
Yes,
Which one? Jim Pearson or
Zoom.
Jim Reardon?
Jim Reardon.
Okay.
Hang on. Those little people now.
Okay, so let's see. Hi, Ahmed. He muted.
Looks like he's on twice.
Yeah, looks like he's, Ahmed, are you there?
Yep, he's coming.
One of them's muted.
Yes, I'm here. Yeah.
Okay, Jim Reardon.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi. Greg Morehouse.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, and Rich Riccio.
I'm here.
Okay, agenda item 4A, Weston and Sampson. Engineering projects. This is the street solar farm. Jim, you want to give just a quick summary of that? The report is out. Copies were sent to Ahmed, and I think Nick got it, but just quickly for the committee.
Sure. I have a brief PowerPoint if you'd like that I can give to the group. Would that help?
Sure.
All right. Let me see if I can share my screen. No, I'm disabled at the moment.
No, you didn't show it to just get your roller off so they don't have an accent.
Do we have to do something here, or can you come on?
Yeah. No. You folks need to enable me to share.
Do you know how to enable so he can share? Got to be one of those little boxes.
What about that green?
You know, the green one all by itself. To anyone,
I think the screen.
There we go. Hold on just a moment. Oh, no, we're still waiting.
Oh, how about that arrow, bottom right, Tom? See, it says share screen. Is that it?
yeah, it's already activated. Someone else may have grabbed it.
Oh.
And if it's a problem to do, I can just run through without. It's not super critical.
Okay, why don't you go ahead? If we can get it to come up in the meantime, we will.
All right, cool. All right, so obviously this is regarding the Brook Street Solar Project.
Oh,
We were given plan sets that were both for the permitting and the as-built condition, and we took a look at those and in general at the site conditions, and then following that, we conducted a review in the field. Our understanding is basically that this particular that there are two basins there, and that they both ended up with standing water in them at some points in time, and they were really supposed to drain down, and that wasn't happening quite right. So we were taking a look at these both from the standpoint of whether they conform to the original approved permitting plan set, the as-built that is, and whether there were field conditions that maybe weren't anticipated when they were built that were problematic now. So let's see. So we had a variety of materials that we took a look at. They included the stormwater report for Brook Street Solar Project that was done by Atlantic Design. It's about 80 pages long, back in 2018. Another one entitled Stormwater Report Addendum for Brook Street, also at that time about another 52 pages. A third stormwater report, and that was Addendum 2. Also in 2018, then plans entitled the Brook Street Solar Commercial Photovoltaic, yeah, you know what I'm trying to say, photovoltaic system. And that was by Level Design Group, and it was annotated for construction. There were 10 sheets, and it was put together in 2021. Plans entitled the Brook Street Solar Stormwater Basin Repair Plan from 2022, and that was 3 sheets. Plan entitled Drainage As-Built Brook Street Solar, also by Level Design Group, and that was another sheet in 2022. A report from the Level Design Group to the Stormwater Committee, 50 pages, and a review letter prepared by Green International that was 3 pages. That was from 2023. And then we noticed a number of deviations from the permitted design set, most significant of which I think had to do with the elevation of the bottom of the system and some of the spillway and pipe inverts. And on occasion, I guess, also some of the outlet openings as well. And so because of these deviations, the system is draining differently than would have been expected. I see James Pearson is on. I'll let him speak to that a little bit more. And James, if you're able to do it, it would probably be good for you to do the review of the site visit as well, since you were there and I was not.
Yeah, happy to do so, but it sounds like we're talking about Clearway for now, right? So, or the project formerly known as Clearway.
No, we're talking about Brook Street.
We are talking about Brook Street. Okay, sorry,
Yeah.
Joined a little bit late. I had a little bit of a snafu.
No problem.
So Brook Street. So the things that we had noticed in our initial review at Brook Street were that there were 2 stormwater basins. There was a detention basin that was farther south on the site, and that one was reported to have some standing water issues. And upon reviewing it, doing a site visit, reviewing it, and reviewing the documentation, it looked like the outlet pipes were configured slightly differently and at a slightly different elevation than was reported in what was reported to be the as-built plan. And so the as-built plan actually differed slightly from the design, actually, is what I'm trying to say. And so for that reason, it would seem that there might be slightly different requirements. It may be a non-issue. It may not be a problem, but it's just one of those things that needs to be verified. The standing water issue in that southerly basin And again, that southerly basin is a detention basin. It's not an infiltration basin. Okay. The detention basin is supposed to drain dry between storms, but in this case, there was standing water that was still in it after storms were gone. And that mainly appeared to be due to some of the grades at the northern end of that southern basin being not graded to positively drain towards the outlet. And so, you know, those are just some things that with some minor work could probably be corrected in some form or fashion. And we had those discussions on site. So the second of the two basins, which was probably the more problematic of the two, it's the one closest to the entrance to the site off of Brook Street. That one, in our initial review letter, we had recommended that some further site investigation was needed in order to ascertain what the problem was with that basin. The way the problem was manifesting itself is that there was standing water that was occurring in that basin for periods longer than 72 hours, which exceeds the time frame that an infiltration basin is supposed to drain. So we went on site and we issued that second letter recently regarding that site visit. And during the site visit, we excavated 2 test pits, and we discovered that for the most part, you know, within the upper 10 feet or so, it did appear to be a lot of sand that had been reported to be the material that had been placed when they did some initial corrective action on that basin. The lab testing that was done confirmed that it was some good sand material that in all respects really should drain fairly rapidly. Once we got down further below the bottom of those test pits, we started to discover some materials that had more of a clay texture and would not tend to drain rapidly. We also did some excavation kind of along one of the edges of the basin to try to get outside of the zone where the sand fill had been placed. And likewise, it seemed like in those areas we were finding some materials that were somewhat less well draining as well. So that led us to our conclusion, which we stated in our most recent letter, that we felt that what was happening is water was accumulating within the sand within that basin. And then since it was surrounded on all sides and on the bottom by soils that had a less pervious character, the water was then not able to drain very quickly beyond that. And with some of the heavy rainfall events that we had back to back recently at the time that the standing water was observed, it seemed that the basin probably just became overwhelmed with the amount of volume of water that was going in there, and with it draining at such a slow rate, it was causing the water to actually raise to the surface and sit there for an extended period while things were only able to drain very slowly. So that told us that it seems to us that the fact that this is an infiltration basin in that location, you know, this site may not be the most ideal for an infiltration basin, and so it may be worth looking at some corrective actions to be taken to maybe change the nature of that basin so that it is not purely just an infiltration basin, but maybe some sort of hybrid solution where maybe it serves a little bit more of a stormwater detention purpose. So that was our thinking there, and all those things are outlined in the letter that we provided.
Okay, Jim Reardon, do you have anything to add?
No, I thought James did a really great job of summarizing that. And yeah, again, I would totally concur with James's points on this, of course, which are that essentially that there is some reconfiguration of that first basin that we were talking about that needs to at least be analyzed a bit, make sure that the basin works as is appropriate under stormwater standards. And then that the second basin that was designed as an infiltration basin, that needs to get revisited.
Okay. Before we go any further, would the person who was identified as iPhone please identify yourself.
Yeah, that's me. This is Ahmed.
Okay.
Yeah, my mic was not working on the.
Oh, okay. All right. We've got you down in two places. So, but the other one just says iPhone. Okay, thank you. If it's okay with the committee, I'm going to ask Mr. Hafez and Mr. Fasandola if they have comments. Then the committee will have an opportunity to ask questions. Mr. Hafez, Mr. Fasandola, comments on what you just heard on the report from Weston and Sampson, or questions, whatever.
Yeah, I don't have any comments. I think we'll start working on the recommendation. So I'll let Nick speak to that. We're clear on Basin 3. That's fine. I just if I can ask for the final report to include the comment on Basin 3 as well. It was included in the initial report, but not in the final report. So the final would be the final for everything. That's all. But I'll let Nick speak to the design that is going to be presented to the Stormwater Committee.
Sure. So for the record, Nick Fasandola, Level Design Group. We appreciate the work done by Weston and Sampson. No new revelations from everybody who's been participating in the this project and these stormwater issues. I'm sure the Stormwater Committee is well aware of all these items. We did look at adding a subdrain, a low flow drain in the basin, about a year and a half ago. I think that would still be the best solution. We'll have to do some modeling of the basin and look at the flows in and out to make sure we're not causing any downstream impacts with the release of stormwater. But I'm thinking an outlet low in the basin, controlled something small that allows that basin to slowly drain out. Hopefully you get some infiltration, and as recommended, it can act as a hybrid type of a basin in this area. I would ask if we could get soil logs from those test pits and maybe just a sketch showing where the test pits were dug. I'm interested to know how deep those holes were and where that clay type material was encountered.
Ahmed, do you have the 4 photos that I emailed to you?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay, if you could forward them to Nick. Nick, there were more pictures taken, but these were too many to email. So I picked out 4. And the test hole that was closest to the entrance where the culvert is to get into the site, I didn't get pictures there because the soil was too unstable. And as the big piece of equipment was digging, it kept caving in. Mr. Ferry said to me, don't go down there, that's not safe. So we stayed on the berm. But when they moved to the west, where the basin is more shallow, these pictures were taken. So you will see a picture with the tape going down to about, I'm going to guess 4 feet. And that first measurement is the high water mark. And then you're going to see the tape going way, way down to the bottom, which was, I'm going to guess, maybe 10 feet, not sure. The logs will probably show that. But that's when the groundwater appeared. There was another picture with a tape in it. The last picture that I sent to Mr. Hafez was the last scoop of material they dug out of it. And it is a blue-gray, it looks like clay. I'm not a soil expert, but if you can see those pictures, I think that will help. And I do have more here if you want to see them sometime. But I think those 4 will be helpful with a soil log.
Thanks for the information. No, yeah, it would be helpful just so we can understand the material. I know in the report it did say an odor of organic material, and just making sure that it's whatever was dug there, what was natural material, because as you guys are all well aware, that the hole was filled with plenty of organic material. And from what the previous stormwater agent and I witnessed, on site, they removed, I would say almost all that material. I mean, they did their best. It was difficult in some areas to get everything out, but I think they did a good job of getting rid of all of that organic material, stump grindings, topsoil, other types of sticks that were put in the bottom of that basin when it was originally constructed.
Yeah, I agree with that, Nick. As a matter of fact, when I looked at some of the soil that had been removed before the measurements that I just described were taken, there was a little bit of stump shredded stuff, but very, very little. So they did a good job cleaning it out, and we didn't hit boulders anywhere, so that's a plus.
No, yeah, that makes sense. All right. Yeah, I mean, other than that, we really don't have anything else to add. We're going to dig into this and come up with a alternative design and present it to the Stormwater Committee. This design will likely have an outlet, maybe an outlet structure, outlet piping, some sort of piped outlet from the basin. Just wanted to make sure and confirm with the Stormwater Committee that that type of approach would be acceptable. We don't want to go through the whole process and then it's determined that the Stormwater Committee isn't willing to accept that type of change. So we just want to make sure that you guys are aware that based on the report and my feelings on the topic, the only way to really solve this issue is to provide some sort of outlet very close to the floor of the basin to make sure this thing drains properly, whether it's an outlet structure that has some type of outlet piping with it or a subdrain that's going to be installed in the bottom of the basin. It will need an outlet. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, and that's something that you guys would consider, given that it's properly designed and we have it reviewed and go through all the proper steps.
Okay, so when the report was issued, Mr. Hafez had said to me that design that you presented a year and a half ago that we rejected, if whether or not that was going to be accepted. And as you said, there's probably going to be modifications based on the report that we have from Weston and Sampson. My response to Mr. Hafez was that, first of all, we rejected that because we still didn't know what the problem was. Now we know what the problem is. There's groundwater, whatever, and it's not draining properly. Now, the other thing is, I did send an email to Jeff Cavallo, the chairman of the planning board. He is going to want to see those plans, whether you're using the old plans or modified plans or whatever you're going to do, because the question is whether or not the proposed solution to this problem in the form of a plan, modified or brand new, constitutes a minor or a major change. So that's why I said in the email, when you get your plan ready, a copy needs to go to the planning board and yes, the Stormwater Committee. But at this point, we want to know what the planning board is going to say. As far as the plan goes, Weston and Sampson have pretty much said what the solution appears to be, but of course they're not going to design it. But whatever you design or prepare or whatever, we're going to ask them to look at it. So I think we're on the road to a final solution to this. I just wanted you to know that planning would like to take a look at this, and we would not act on it as a Stormwater Committee without advice from the planning board.
Understood.
Okay, members of the committee, anybody wish to speak?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead, Lisa.
Mr. Hafez, I have asked more than once now for your SWIP inspection reports. and I haven't received them. Could someone, Nick, could anyone tell me if those inspections are still being conducted on site?
They have been conducted after you've asked for them. They have been conducted throughout the project until it was stabilized. But then when you asked for them, we conducted another test, and I was under the impression that they were sent to you, and since you're asking, then they haven't, so I will send them to you. Oh,
I believe it's also a permit condition of the Stormwater Committee as well, correct?
Yes.
it
Not
is
just
what,
conservation.
sorry, it is what of the.
It is a
stormwater?
requirement, is what she's saying. Yes, those reports are a requirement. Where we don't have a stormwater agent on the Stormwater Committee, if you send them to Mrs. Caldona, she is a member of the committee. So if anything stands out, I'm sure she's going to let us know. Okay?
Okay.
Mr. Ferry, do you have anything?
Just point of order, would there be a public hearing for a waiver?
I'm waiting on everything from planning board because I don't know how they're going to handle it.
I just don't want to back that. I don't believe we need to, but
Well, the other thing I suggested in that email was with copy to Weston and Sampson. When those plans go to the planning board, we probably should have a joint meeting so we all hear the same thing. It'll be in the evening because the planning board's not available during the day, but people can zoom in. But this way, all at the same time, we'll know what requirements planning has, if any, and where do we go from there.
Right.
Once planning says, okay, however it's handled, we've already got the report from Weston and Sampson, so the plans are going to have to meet pretty much the recommendations of our engineers.
so they're going to request waiver in writing. And
Yeah, the usual
document they exhausted all other practical means, and this is their resolution, right?
Yeah, that's what we'll do. Mr. Aguirre.
Yeah, I'm gonna come up because I don't have a mic.
Oh, yeah, this one's live. Oh, that should be live, yeah.
Hello, everyone. James Aguirre, building official. I want to start off by thanking Jim and James for their thoroughness. I read the report. And your summary here today, I think, is spot on. So I appreciate that and your work on behalf of the town. I have a couple of comments and a couple of points. The first thing that I'm concerned with is that this project was always slated to be an infiltration basin. It's obviously now that that's not going to happen. Just to put in layman's terms, what Jim and James are describing is we essentially have a bathtub out there and the water has no place to go. Aside from evaporation, the only way to do anything with the stormwater is to do an outflow pipe, as Mr. Fasandola has suggested. The concern with that is that we now have a question about how the stormwater is going to be treated. What will the TSS be in the stormwater if we have an outfall that's close to the bottom of the basin? I know the basin is large. I'm sure there'll be some treatment, but when we get inundated with storms, no one's going to tell me that that stormwater is not going to run right out that outflow and down into the environment. And then lastly, I will push back if there's any suggestion that stormwater is to remain in these basins. And the reason is we have panels located within the basin footprint. And I'm not going to have solar panels in standing water. So I just want to make sure everyone takes that into consideration when they're coming up with their proposed solution to the problem. Thanks.
Just a comment, Mr. Hafez had, when he saw the report from Weston and Sampson, asked if the new or revised plans would go directly to stormwater. And that's the email I referred to where I said, no, planning's got to take a look at them. But one of the things that Mr. Hafez mentioned was when the battery storage units were approved, there is a condition in there relative to basins in standing water. So what Mr. Aguirre has brought up has also been raised by the planning board, and they have left it up to the stormwater relative to that determination. So Mr. Aguirre has made it clear, which he's done from day one, about those panels in water. So now, obviously, whatever you design has got to address that problem. Because this isn't a new one about the panels, but in any case, Mr. Hafez, one of the reasons that I said that we have not completed a draft pilot agreement is because of inventory. Needless to say, the inventory is going to have the number of panels in it. So when we know for sure that the problem is resolved with drainage, and we know for sure whether the panels that are currently on the inventory list will remain there, or if anything has to be removed, we can move forward with that. But I realize that the pilot agreement is not directly connected to the drainage, but I just wanted to state a change in the number of panels will be reflected. So that's why I've got a hold on that agreement, pilot agreement with the Board of Assessors, because obviously I'm an assessor too. So just so you know that it's a separate section, but there is a connection between the two, okay? Does anybody else have anything here, or?
Yeah, if I
Go
can
ahead.
just say something, yeah.
Yeah,
Just to put everyone's mind at ease with respect to the panels being in water, or like these solar systems are designed to be outside in the rain, in the snow, in the like all weather conditions. So being in water, standing water, like we have one of the projects, one complete array is built over a detention basin. Yeah, like water is not an issue, but we'll address that in the design, or the report will show that water will not be standing there. And as Mr. Fasendola has explained, it will be the design will be done in a way to ensure drainage in 72 hours. I just wanted to put that comment there, so no one would be worried about water and the panels. Thank you.
I have to comment on this. I had built a solar farm over a detention basin. It wasn't in Dayton, number one. Number two, from day one, panels in standing water have never been acceptable. That was part of the reason we rejected Mr. Fasendola's plan a year and a half ago. Obviously, when it rains, they may be in standing water until it drains. But standing water to me is not water that drains. It means the storm's over, the sun comes out, everything dries up except the standing water that's still there. So that's why it's important that the system that is going to present it to the planning board and the stormwater committee addresses that. There has never been a deviation from that from day one, as far as panels being located in water that is permanent. So I just want that clear, because I know that there's engineering work involved. In any case, does anybody else have anything? Mrs. Beausoleil, if you wish to go to the podium, please.
Lauren Beausoleil, 1680 Pine Street. These reports that have been put out, this is public
Yes,
knowledge.
yes.
How do I get a copy of them?
You can have mine. You can have mine.
Thank you. And will I be able to get a copy of what they submit as a new design? Or
I doubt it. My guess is this is a set of plans,
Yeah.
but a public meeting, they will have a presentation,
okay,
all right? And as I say, I'm thinking it'll be joint with the planning board. But a stack of plan, I mean, the plan itself is usually many pages.
okay.
But
Miss Sesserday usually puts it on the internet anyway, so maybe I'll be able to see it there. Not seeing the report, I just want to confirm what I'm thinking I'm hearing. Is it water or is it clay that is stopping the infiltration of the water, of the standing water?
Mr. Pearson, is it a combination of soil and groundwater that has prevented this basin to drain properly, in your opinion, or Mr. Reardon?
Well, I think the only thing I can say, with a certain level of certainty is that it seems to be the soil conditions that seem to be causing the issue. The soils at the base of the basin and surrounding the basin seem to be of a character where they don't allow water to percolate very fast. And so once the sand within the basin gets saturated with water, that water has no place to go, and so the water level just continues to rise until now you have water that's above the surface of the sand, and I mean, eventually it can percolate into that soil. It's just that it happens at such a slow rate that you end up seeing standing water in that basin for an excessive period of time. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
You're welcome. Just a general comment for anyone who's gone to the site or seen the pictures that I took when Mr. Ferry and I did site visits in June and July of last year. When you saw the giant boulder I was standing next to, and you figure how deep a hole you got to dig to bury that, you're bound to hit groundwater, along with all the stumps and the other stuff that was buried. And my guess is when they dug the hole to bury that boulder, they hit water. But let's face it, we all know what happened there. They weren't concerned about groundwater. They were concerned about disposing of refuse on site. And then they got caught. So they're gone. It's been reconstructed, but the hole was so deep that, and the soil situation and the groundwater, it's kind of a combination. So anybody else from the committee have a comment or whatever? Anybody on screen? Mr.
Ms. Gould, I
Fassi.
have one question for Mr. Aguirre.
Yes.
Who or how is the determination made for the special permit modification if it's major or minor?
That would be me.
That would go to you first,
Yes.
and then you would make a determination. And then if it's determined to be major, we go through the formal process, notify abutters, the more formal application.
That is correct.
Okay, so I guess we would submit the plan to you first for determination, get the determination, and then make our application to the planning board.
I think that would be appropriate because then if there were any issues coming out of the public hearing through planning, they would be addressed before the Stormwater Committee took it up. So I would agree with that assessment, yes.
Okay, so once we get something put together, designed, I'll submit it to your office for a determination with a letter. And then once the determination is made, whether it's minor or major, we'll go forward with the proper permitting pathway.
Perfect.
Does anyone else have anything on the Brook Street site solar farm?
No, thank you.
Okay, so we're now going to move on to Weston and Sampson Engineering Projects, MACS. This is the solar farm project behind Arujos. Mr. Reardon or Mr. Pearson?
Sure. So I'll start off and then I'll kick it over to you, James, if that's all right with you. So we were asked to take a look at this one also from the standpoint of conformance between the permitted design and the as-built design. James was the primary person who did that review. And so we did notice some differences, but I will allow James to have a few minutes here to explain what the differences were and the significance of those.
Certainly. Thank you, Jim. So again, we conducted a review primarily just looking at the originally approved plans for the solar facility versus what had been provided to us in the way of as-built drawings. And so what we did is, we looked at things like, the basin areas, the basin elevations, and the configuration of some of the outlets from some of these basins. And because those are really all the things that sort of are the key parameters that dictate how the basins manage stormwater and what kinds of peak flow rates that you might expect coming out of them. So we did notice that there were some differences between what was shown in the as-built drawings and what was shown in the original approved plans. There are 3 basins on site, and for each of the basins, there were various nuanced things that were different, and there were enough little differences here and there that when we wrote our letter, we summarized them kind of in a tabular format. I won't go into excruciating detail in this meeting to describe what each and every difference was in each of these basins, but what I will say is that in general, the differences seemed to be that some of the basins had slightly different areas. So some of them seemed like they were perhaps a little bit smaller. Some of them seemed like they were both at slightly different elevations in terms of the bottom elevation than what was shown. The as-built drawings, I should also say, may have not had sufficient detail in some cases to really ascertain what the as-built bottom elevation of some of the basins were, because it was shown with contours and it wasn't shown with any kind of spot elevations in the bottom of the basin. So, so for instance, let's say the bottom of the basin showed a contour that was at elevation 100. It's possible that maybe within that contour, maybe there are areas of the basin that would be lower than that, but not low enough to where you could show a 99 contour. So it's somewhere between 99 and 100. That's a level of detail that really wasn't shown on the as-built drawing, so we wouldn't have been able to make that determination. There were also some minor differences in some of the outlet structures in terms of just some of the measurements on those. So again, those are all summarized in the letter, and really, to me, what these things amount to is that, yeah, if there really are some differences, then it would seem to me that it might be incumbent on the applicant to just confirm that given these differences, things will still meet the standards that they were required to meet at the time of approval. And that about sums it up, I think.
Questions, comments from anybody? The situation is, I'll just look at the last page of the report. Top of page 3. The key point that can be made from the data above is that there are some differences between the way that the stormwater basins were constructed versus the way that they were designed. These differences mean that the stormwater management system overall for the site may perform differently than predicted by the design calculations. It is possible that even with the differences that the stormwater management system may produce the intended results and conform with regulatory standards. But the only way to confirm this would be through stormwater analysis and modeling of the as-built conditions. We recommend that the applicant perform this analysis to confirm whether the as-built condition of the basins meets the regulatory standards cited in the 2022 stormwater analysis. So we're waiting from.
Do you need that in the form of a motion so that we order them to do that?
Yeah, in just a minute, Jim. So where we are with, we refer to this Arujo simply because if we refer to something either by a street address or an actual physical location, those of us in town automatically know what solar farm we're talking about. Because if I were to say William Street, there's at least 3 on William Street. So we've kind of given them names. So this one we know it's MACS is the owner operator. However, this one we call Arujos. So just so everyone understands, Mr. Aguirre, you should make a motion.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we order the design engineers for the Arujo Solar Farm to conduct stormwater calculations and modeling on the as-built plans.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Questions, comments from anybody? Hearing none, all in favor? Stagg, yeah?
Aye.
Ferry?
Aye.
Ms. Caledonia?
Aye.
Mr. Woods?
Aye.
Mrs. Goulart and I. Thank you, everybody. Agenda item 4C, stormwater agent position status. I don't have anything new to report. Mr. Mullen is working on some kind of a description of what it is we're looking for. And he was going to talk to Weston and Sampson about that. So I would say it's a work in process. Agenda item 4D, 0 Elm Street, request for waivers. So everyone should have gotten the report. That were done by Weston and Sampson for the planning board and the Conservation Commission. Since the Concom report is the shortest, do you have anything you want to say or add or anything, Lisa?
Well, I just wanted to say Frank Christofouli just chimed in, I guess,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
he's not wasn't able to speak or something here.
Well, that's why I asked if anybody wanted to get in.
In the chat.
Where is he?
Right there.
Excuse me, let's go back to, we'll be right with you.
I don't know if you all can see it, but he says his audio is not working.
Mm.
Is his audio something on his own computer? Do we know that?
Do you want me to message it to him? He says he can hear us, but we can't hear him.
Mr. Ferry, can we have him call in on your phone? Is that okay?
Frank, if you want to call my phone and we'll get your audio that way.
Does he know the number? Okay.
He's looking to understand if the groundwater may be affected by the design difference. That's his question. For Clearway.
Good afternoon.
Hey, Thomas, Frank.
Yep, you're on speakerphone.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand if the design differences between the design and the as-built could potentially lead to increase in groundwater.
I would say that's to be determined.
Mr. Pearson or Mr. Reardon, did you hear that?
Yes.
Yeah,
Do you have any comment at this point? This is the Arujo project.
yeah. I think that it's premature for us to voice any conclusions on that issue right now. I think that the applicant just needs to provide us with some information.
Okay, Mr. Christofouli, did you hear him?
I did. That works for me.
Okay, we all set?
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go back now to 0 Elm Street. Mrs. Caledonia, did you have anything that, any comments you wanted to state relative to the Concom report? And I know you issued order of conditions.
Yes, we issued the order of conditions on Monday and closed the public hearing last month. So nothing pertaining to conservation. I guess I was just a little surprised that there was so many waivers being requested and the Stormwater Committee never received an application. That's my only question.
Okay, the application was delivered last month at the meeting, and it was sent down to the Board of Health because obviously they're going to have to act on whether or not it's issued, but well, actually, it's got to be issued because the work's going on. The only thing that I noticed when I read the Concom report,
You mean the order of conditions, or are you talking
no,
about
no,
Weston and?
I'm looking at, right now, I'm looking at the Weston and Sampson report dated January the 12th, 2024.
Mhm.
First page, bottom paragraph. Full peer review of the stormwater management aspects of this project are pending advice of the Dayton Stormwater Committee and are therefore not included in this peer review. And then he goes on to state what they actually have reviewed. So we got this officially at last month's meeting. So where we are now is, yes, there have been waiver requests submitted that are recorded in the report that Weston and Sampson issued for the planning board. Initially, I thought there were 4 conditions because that was mentioned to Mr. Ferry at the last meeting. But in looking at the planning board report that was prepared by Weston and Sampson, and then the email that I got from Mr. Moore, the engineer, they're actually listed in 2 different places in the planning board report. So I understand all 8 now, and it's not just 4 that they're looking at. Either Mr. Pearson or Mr. Reardon, do you wish to comment on anything, or would you rather that we start discussing what it is being requested for waivers?
So I'll offer here that while those were noted on the front of the plan set, there were no formal applications that we received. We understand that they were delivered at the last Stormwater Committee meeting, although we haven't actually received those yet or been asked to review them at this point. You know, that said, also they were not communicated in the Conservation Commission peer review letter, just in the planning board, because they were either planning board or stormwater related requests.
Yeah, the requests, as I understand it, were all requests related to sections of the bylaws that were under the purview of the planning board. That's the way I understood it at the time when we did our review for the planning board. And so I believe you'll see, if you're looking at that planning board letter, that I had given some opinions at that time as to what my thoughts were concerning some of those things. I'll just kind of leave it at that.
Okay, for informational purposes, I'm going to read what the waivers are. Because in looking at this email, the full Stormwater Committee didn't get this list. It looks like mostly planning board. But anyhow, the waiver requests are, the following waivers are requested from the Town of Dayton subdivision rules and regulations. So yes, that's planning board. 1, from section 4320 to allow an open stormwater basin. Number 2, from section 4322 to allow the proposed constructed stormwater wetland to have a permanent pool, in parentheses, does not drain dry as the regulation states. Number 3, from section 4324 to allow a depth greater than 3 feet in the proposed stormwater basin. Number 4, from section 4325 to allow an open basin without the required channel in parentheses, does not apply to the proposed constructed stormwater wetland basin. Number 5, from section 4326 to allow an open basin without the required sloped bottom, in parentheses, does not apply to the proposed constructed stormwater wetland basin. Number 6, from section 4327 to allow 3-to-1 slopes inside the stormwater basin rather than 5-to-1. Number 7, the section 4332 to allow underground chambers without pretreatment, in parentheses, roof runoff is considered clean. Number 8, from section 4340 to allow drain pipes to be installed with less than 3 foot of cover. The adds N-12 HDPE pipe proposed requires only 1 foot of cover to meet the H-20 loading rate. So Weston and Sampson was not asked to look at these, and they have not been submitted in writing to the best of your knowledge.
We received a letter from Zenith on December 8th that makes mention of the waivers, but we haven't received, I don't believe we've received actual applications for the waivers yet. So yeah, go ahead, James.
Yeah, to clarify, I did look at some of these waiver requests in the context of the planning board review, but I have not looked at them in the context of the stormwater committee review.
Okay. Would you?
Of course. For the record, my name is, excuse me, Niall Zager from Zenith Consulting Engineers. So we've been under the, and again, this might be somewhat our fault for not filing this simultaneously, but it was my understanding that we would file the planning board and conservation, and then that was being reviewed on simultaneously, and then we would file for stormwater separately. We did review the stormwater bylaw, and from what we can tell is there's nothing in the stormwater bylaw that differs from, as far as the design purposes go, from what we had already designed. Now, that being said, if there has to be a separate review, we understand, but it was our understanding that this was to be done, that this was done under the purview of planning and conservation. A lot of these waivers are due to the fact that we did do a different stormwater design, other than just what's considered a detention basin. We did what's kind of considered, like stated, a constructed stormwater wetland basin, which in our opinion is just it's a better overall treatment, and just an overall better fit for the site. But again, as you stated, you read through the waivers, and obviously Weston and Sampson has to make their, they'll offer you their, professional opinion on these waivers. But none of these to us are anything that, would affect. If anything, what we're doing is a better design, in our opinion, than what would be if we were to meet a lot of these waiver requirements. But again, we're here before you, asking for your direction as to how to move forward, and basically, you let us know what you think.
My personal feeling is that stormwater should have been involved initially, because we would now have a complete package from Weston and Sampson. We have to rely on them for engineering services because there's nobody on the stormwater committee any longer that's an engineer or has that kind of background. I think the next step is you're going to have to send these on to planning so that they can pass them on to Weston and Sampson. Once Weston and Sampson has an opportunity to look at these, I'm sure they're going to give recommendations, so forth and so on. Right now, I don't see that as the stormwater committee, we got a place to go to make a decision on any of them. And this may be just when Weston and Sampson gets these and has a chance to look at everything and there's discussion, and planning board gets that information, we may be able to have the meeting together and get these things resolved. But some of these I'm familiar with. I can tell you one thing, that has never flown in Dayton. And if this is waived, I think it's going to be a problem. And that's number 6. From section 4327 to allow 3-to-1 slopes inside the stormwater basin rather than a 5-to-1. And the reason I say that is, I don't know if you're familiar what's south of that location where your construction's going to be. There's a pit at the top of that hill near that housing development. And that's what a 3-to-1 is. It's a pit, not a basin. And I happened to find an email that was written because we had problems with the developer. And this goes back to August 31st of 2016. This is me writing to Mr. Ferry. Tom, please check this out and let me know. I don't know how much plainer we could have made what we wanted them to install. Also, please check out the quote bike riding basin and let me know if they've done anything there. That's a separate issue. What had happened was, obviously, in 2016, there was no stormwater committee, and enforcement of, I'll call them stormwater rules and regs, depending upon the nature of what it was, fell to the planning board when there were developments, and this is a housing development. So we got complaints about this basin, questions about it being dangerous because there were kids living in the neighborhood, in the development. The reference to bikes, there was a stormwater basin, truly a basin. The kids were using for a recreational purpose, tearing it up. So that was separate. But the response that came back to me from Mr. Ferry, Nancy, the retaining area in the front is cleared of brush, and it appears the brush was put on and over the wall to the north, which was the former ICI property, now Spectrum. I'll stop right there. The developer had a bond tied up because he had not completed certain things at the site. And the town said to him, he wanted the bond released. And the town said, no, you haven't finished the project. The neighbors, the residents were complaining about a number of things. One of the problems was this pit that was developed for stormwater control. It had grown up into, well, at least saplings, maybe not trees, but definitely saplings and all sorts of junk. So it wasn't being maintained. The email goes on to say, yes, there is a piece of fence that is wrapped around the tree on the line, and the fence is not connected where it runs parallel with the stone wall of the Spectrum property. Also, there is no gated access to the retention area. As far as town property, there is one pole that could be, a surveyor would need to determine that. Or if the plans show for bounds, that could help. I do not have a plan of that development. Retention area out back is not posted, and there is vegetation growing undisturbed, indicating no bike activity. That was the separate basin. That situation with the pit was one of the major complaints that we had to deal with. And that's one of the reasons why there was another development plan for Richmond Hill, a housing development, but it was on the up end of Hart Street, the dead end part. It was called Pudding Stone, acres of Pudding Stone something. And they had proposed, I think it was 30 some homes initially on the highest site in the town, sloped, as you can imagine, rocky. And as a result of that, Tom Pius, who was a selectman and member of the Board of Health at that time, and I met with an engineer in Middleborough one Saturday and said, show us different kinds of basins. And we did. And that's when we saw truly what a 3-to-1 is, which is a pit. And it was based on that we've never granted that a waiver before. Whether or not that recommendation comes out when Weston and Sampson looks at all of it, I just want you to know ahead of time what the town's position has been on 3-to-1s and 5-to-1s, okay? Not to influence anybody, but I think the information is out there and everybody should be aware of it if they don't know about it.
If I may, Ms. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
We are, just so you know, aware, we are fenced as per a request by the planning board. that we are fencing in that basin completely. There's gonna be a chain link fence that's gonna wrap the entire basin.
That's 4 foot, I think it said.
Yes, that's correct. So that'll add as a protection to it. The 3-to-1 is really only because one, it gives more volume, and two, one that meets the stormwater management standards for the state, but it also, because of the site itself, because of the slope there, if we were to go to 5-to-1, it would literally, we wouldn't be able to catch the grade, and it would go off site. We wouldn't be able to, because of how much it drops off after that. So that's why it was done the way it is. We feel as though it meets the standard. We've designed many basins. Again, I'm not trying to influence, just trying to state our stance. Is we've designed many of these. You can easily stabilize a 3-to-1 slope. I have a 3-to-1 slope in my yard that I actually mow. So again, I'm not saying what you're saying is incorrect, but it does meet the stormwater standard as far as stormwater management goes, and whether or not you grant the waivers, obviously up to the committee. But that's why it was done the way it was.
I realize it meets the standards, and that's what the developer was telling us on Pudding Stone Estates. That's what it was. And he assured us that a 3-to-1 slope would work and it would meet the requirements. That's why Mr. Pyers and I did the field trip with an engineer, not involved with anything other than take us around and show us. And what you described as far as what may be in your home or in your yard. Yeah, we saw one of those, complete with playground equipment and kids' swings and everything else. And it was fenced, but a separate issue. That's not what we're here to talk about. So Mr. Reardon or Mr. Pearson, next steps, you need to have those waivers and requests in writing to move ahead?
Yeah, we need the, whatever is typically the appropriate form and application for a waiver request from the planning board and the stormwater committee.
Okay, so. I mean, we can absolutely do that. I can find out from the planning board how to move forward. I thought that this was already all voted on with the planning board, but I will reach out to Kerry and find out how to move forward.
Did you get a copy of the report that Weston and Sampson did for the planning board?
Yes, I did, yes. But again, I'll reach out to Kerry and find out how to move forward.
Okay. Does anybody on Zoom have any questions?
Niles, I just want to let you know she's out this week.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah, she's back Monday, I think, from what I saw in the email.
Nancy,
Excuse me, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I apologize for interrupting. So I guess a question for you as well, which is that I understood from earlier comments that there were applications delivered for waiver requests to you folks, to the stormwater committee, and it sounded like those were in hard copy, but might be with the Board of Health at the moment. Is that something that is going to get transmitted to us? We're just not entirely sure how you want us to proceed with the review at this point, and that's why we haven't, done any review.
What I read from was part of an email from Thomas Morris, the engineer. It's part of an email. It's not a formal request for waivers. And I'm sure there's some kind of form or format that would have to be followed. I just printed this because I didn't know if, I didn't think the Stormwater Committee had all this information. Now, again, I'm looking at names and I see Planning Board, but I just wanted to state what they were, all 8 of them, and ask what's the next step. So that's where we are.
Okay.
So he said he was going to get in touch with Kerry, and whatever you file with the planning board, as far as the request for waivers, will be shared with us. You don't have to do it separately. And it may be, as I said, it may be good to just have the two committees, board committee, discuss this together. So once it gets resolved, you won't have to come back, go to two separate meetings.
Again, none of these are waivers from the stormwater bylaw itself. These are all from the subdivision regulation, site plan review. That was what our understanding was, is that this was to be, when we requested this from the planning board, was that we were requesting it from the planning board and then it would get submitted to the stormwater committee. And that's how I thought the process worked.
Mhm.
So again, I'm just saying how we handled it. So now if we have to go back to the planning board, we'll do so and find out how to move forward.
Yeah, I think, I can understand the confusion, just like when I heard Mr. Morris tell Mr. Ferry there were 4 and I got 8. It's like, wait a minute, how many are there? I read through the Weston and Sampson report that was sent to the planning board, and in 2 different places found the 8. I also looked at it and said, subdivision rules, planning board. But I will tell you, with both planning and conservation, we all sort of follow all the same rules, but we also got our own specific things we have to follow. And obviously subdivisions, that's planning board. But when planning and conservation issue decisions or make statements, what they usually say is, this is okay with us contingent upon. Similar to what I mentioned earlier when I was talking about what the planning board said about the battery things. We got that straightened out, but then they commented about those panels that are in water, which comes back to stormwater, and that was part of that. So when, again, Concom and plan make decisions, if they put something in there like, which basically is, well, this is okay with us, but check with stormwater on this particular area. So that's what this is, that's sort of where we are right now. Okay, and that's why I'm thinking, when these are discussed, it would be good to do them together. But if you contact Kerry and find out the route to go, and then we can get meetings scheduled, whatever.
I absolutely will.
Okay. Does anyone on screen have any other comment that they want to add? Anybody here from the committee? Mr. Aguirre?
I have a couple comments, and I'm going to have a question for Mr. Zagat from you, Madam Chairwoman. I wanted to start off by saying that it was my understanding when this discussion took place months ago that this process was supposed to streamline things and make it easier for the developer, easier for the town to look at a project and have it reviewed under the big 3 disciplines, which in this case are planning board, stormwater, and conservation. I did say in the past, now that I'm health director, that in some rare cases, if we have a shared system or something, then I would piggyback on the same review to make sure we met the requirements of Title V. That said, it sounds like there's been some breakdown here, and I'm concerned about it. Obviously, it's the first project that's gone forward with this new system. So like anything else, there's going to be some bumps in the road. Unfortunately, the developer has paid the price by being delayed time and time again. So I would like to have a discussion internally about what we can do to fix this so it doesn't happen for the next person who comes to town with a project. However, with that said, I heard a few things today and I want to just ask a couple questions. Can you verify, are your waivers through the subdivision control bylaw? Okay, so if that's correct, Jim and James, why wouldn't those been looked at through your initial planning board review?
I'll answer that. So we have not received those waiver requests. We haven't received the forms that said these are requesting waivers. We've received indication that waivers would be requested, but not the actual forms.
Okay, so is it safe to say, and I'm certainly not speaking for you, that once you receive those, you may be able to quickly comment on those and return them back to us for review?
I think that's safe to say.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Thank you.
Mr. Aggie, I just wanted to ask you, what process were you referring to? Were you talking about when we all met together and Weston and Sampson was designated our engineering firm?
Well, there were many conversations that took place about this process. So it seems like.
But I wasn't present. So I don't know what you're
I
talking
wasn't
about.
present for all of them either. So that said,
Another reason to have a meeting.
right, that said, I think we need to reconvene and have a discussion about the future when an application comes in to whomever that may be, that we on the town side collectively know where everything's going and how our process is going to be laid out.
Yeah, and I think there's an email going around to set up a meeting, a 6-month review, I think it's called, about how everything's working. So certainly that's a good topic for this one. And I agree with you. Just to add, when the Stormwater Committee was set up, the reason why the 7, I'll call them key voting departments were mentioned was to do this kind of thing. And it has worked. Yes, on this particular one, stormwater was left out. In the past, it would be, hey, there's a project coming. This is what it is. Don't know if you're going to have to weigh in on this, but you need to know that this is coming. And I read somewhere that this one has been around for over a year, and yet we got it last month. But I agree with you. So it doesn't help your situation, except you know what you have to do now. But from our standpoint is, it's an area that's caused a problem, and we are planning a meeting amongst town officials and Weston and Sampson so that we make sure everybody gets information.
So, yeah, understood. So just moving forward, I guess really where the breakdown in communication was on our end was we requested these waivers from the beginning. Since day one, they were on the site plan, but I guess they're supposed to be, according to what Weston and Sampson and, whoever is saying, is that they were supposed to be in formal application, but they were, again, it was our understanding because they were on the plan. That's typically how we would typically do it, that it's requested, it's on the plan. So even though it wasn't maybe formally put on a paper, on a form, it was there, it was requested. The planning board reviewed it, conservation reviewed it, the Weston and Sampson had it in front of them. So again, we will absolutely find out the way to go forward, but I think moving forward as for your information, what was difficult on our end is we thought we requested it, and because we didn't fill out a form that we didn't even know about it or were made aware of, we're being now brought back to planning board again, which is why I think why we're where we are. So that's the issue on our end that we're.
No, I understand.
I could see if they were asked for when we came to the stormwater committee, where there was nothing provided to the planning board or conservation, 100% agree, but they were there from day one. So that's, I guess, where our confusion lies.
Yeah, and just so you understand the process that seems to have broken down a little in this particular case. Well, they're gone now. The Brook Street Solar Project we're talking about, that's been around since at least 2018. And as you can tell, there's been a myriad of problems. But in that particular case, situations have arisen where requests were made of the Stormwater Committee. Things like, can we cut down all those trees? The answer was, were they on the original plan to come down? No, you got to go back to planning. So when everything is working properly and the communication is in place, it's not unusual for Stormwater to say to, in that particular project, no, you got to go to planning. They make the determination about trees. And in that particular case, they had to go to Concom because there was another bunch of trees in another area that the concern was wetlands and that kind of stuff. So in having you do this, we're not trying to send you around in circles, but we're cognizant of the responsibilities of each board and then all of us acting together. So that's what I'm expecting is going to happen here.
Understood. Yeah, no, and again, we're not questioning who's responsible for what by any means. It's more the process is what I guess we would, if we had known that we had to file those, formal forms for waiver requests and that everyone was aware of it at the beginning, we wouldn't be where we are right now.
Right, exactly.
Taken care of. So it's just kind of it's a technicality, I think, in a way, but now we're going back. So again, I understand, I'm not questioning who's doing what. That's not the concern here at all, but just moving forward, that's, I guess, why where we are.
And it probably would have been beyond, we didn't have it on the agenda now. It probably would have been resolved months ago if it had been brought. But like I say, I'm expecting with the next steps, this getting resolved. And as I say, I might not have to wait till the next stormwater meeting. If in fact there's going to be a discussion before then, we can post a stormwater meeting to meet jointly with planning and maybe get it done in one meeting.
We'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have anything on 0 Elm Street?
Yeah, if I can just make a few statements really quick,
Go
just
ahead.
to add some clarity here. So when we reviewed this project before the planning board, it went through 2 rounds of review. I did two reviews. The second of those 2, we issued a letter dated December 20th. So as of December 20th, when I issued that second review letter, the applicant up to that point had made 8 waiver requests to the planning board. And they had done so, as he stated, by putting those waiver requests on the plan. So when I was doing my review, I recognized those as being waiver requests, even though they weren't on some formal, waiver request form. I don't even know if such a thing exists, but I took it to mean that they were requesting these waivers formally by virtue of the fact that they were on the plan. And I commented on them as such. So my December 20th comment letter to the planning board does give my opinions as to what I thought about their waiver requests. I think what we're saying here is that we've only just now become aware that the applicant has now formally submitted an application to this stormwater committee. So now, since it's in front of a different venue at this point, we'll review pretty much, it sounds like we're going to be reviewing pretty much the same stuff that's gone before the planning board, but we just need to be able to see it to confirm that it is the same thing. And more than likely we're probably going to end up having, the same comments. It's just that we need to see what's been submitted for the consideration of the stormwater committee before we start offering up any opinions on that, because we just, we assume it's probably the same stuff that went to the planning board, but we just need to see it. That's all. And it's got to be, the plans and whatever else is included as part of the submission to the stormwater committee. So I hope that helps.
Okay, yeah, I did review, that's what I was referring to when I said the Weston and Sampson report to the planning board, because I did go through it and I did read through comments. And yeah, there's definitely some questions open relative to stormwater. But again, I really think these can be, once you have a chance to really look at whatever's going to be submitted in the light of stormwater, I think we can get this resolved. I still think a joint meeting with planning is a good idea, just in case anyone has questions, or hopefully we can get it resolved after we hear from you in one meeting. Mr. Pearson?
Oh, sorry. Didn't realize that was a question. I thought it was a statement.
Not
Yes.
really a question. No, I was just addressing what you said.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just
Yes.
clarify one more thing. So that, again, the plans have not changed since then. They are the exact same plans that they had reviewed. So they should, and that was approved by planning and conservation. So no changes have been made since they made their last review. So they can at least be assured that there's not any new information that they're going to be seeing. So just to clarify that.
Okay, so if you check with Kerry and find out what the next step is, and I will send her an email and let her know that you're going to be in touch with her. And it might be advisable to have a joint meeting with planning and stormwater to just have one meeting after we get information from Weston and Sampson, and let's get it resolved.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Thank you. Moving on. 5A, Blue Wave Solar, Tremont Middle Street. Anybody on Okay, we got Mr. Morehouse and we got, Ms. Morrison.
Yep, and then Rich Riccio, he's our EOR here as
Joe,
well, in
okay.
case there's any questions for him.
This project, Mr. Morehouse, I had sent you an email relative to, your email talked about drainage pipes or whatever you want to call them that were stuck in the berm
Yeah,
to handle that water situation. And what I said to you was, it was questioned because although the plans you submitted may have allowed you to make those modifications, the Stormwater Committee was not aware of that until I happened to drive by one day and see them, and that's when the whole question got asked. However, you've indicated those pipes have been capped, and if we want to recommend you somehow plug them up with whatever, you'd be willing to do it. And what I said to you was, the pipe issue, as far as them being inserted and all that, is history. Don't do anything about the pipes now, because the next thing that's going to happen is, I've mentioned to Mr. Mullen, the town administrator, this solar farm, just like the others, we need a review to make sure that how it is constructed follows the plans, the last set of approved plans, whatever they were. And with the end result being, we have an engineer's opinion that the stormwater management system as designed and approved meets all the standards and it works. And the reason for that, again, is because we don't have anybody on staff to do that. And the kind of the last thing that we look at is everything okay? Is everything working properly? So forth and so on. So that's why we will request that Weston and Sampson do this review for us. Once we get answers, and if there are any problems, once they're resolved, and we have an opinion from Weston and Sampson, everything looks good to us. Obviously, we will just vote to pass this on to the building commissioner, because once he has the final stormwater report, he can then do what he has to do, and he's the man that makes the decision about going live. So this is kind of an update of where we are. Mr. Reardon, has Mr. Mullen said anything to you yet, or asked you to complete anything yet? On this is Blue Wave. It's on Tremont and Middle Streets.
So we were initially asked to go out and do some field work, which we did, field inspection. That was, I want to say, late January or late February. And we completed that. And then we were asked to hold further work, which we did. I spoke to Mr. Mullen yesterday, and he said that he was going to request us to complete the analysis, of our field review, and provide written response on that, or written report of that. And so I haven't had a chance to look through today and see whether that request is formally, that approval, I guess, notice to proceed has formally been received. But as soon as it has, we'll move forward with that report.
Okay. I thought you might have gone out there, but I wasn't positive. But if you're waiting for the go-ahead from the town, obviously Mr. Mullen's probably waiting for information from Blue Wave. So Mr. Morehouse, Mr. Riccio, Ms. Larson, do you have any questions on where we are with this? Or
no, I can touch base with Mr. Mullen, see if there's anything holding up on our end of things. And but yeah, that all sounds very reasonable to me. We'll kind of wait to see what the Weston and Sampson finds in their investigation and their final kind of visit there, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, the other thing that was in the email, you had talked about doing some kind of cleanup at Sunken Brook, and I told you to get in touch with Mr. Ferry on that. Have
Yes.
you, Mr. Ferry and Mr. Morehouse, have you communicated or whatever?
I have not reached out as of yet. I was waiting to get a kind of final date when my civil subs could get out there and get that taken care of. But I just want to have a kind of date formalized, a plan formalized before I reached out.
Okay, Lisa?
Yeah, I did speak with Mr. Ferry, and we both determined that silt appears to be on private property. So we would need them to reach out to them directly. I'm in the process of getting the current ownership information, and I can send that off to you once I have it, Greg.
Perfect. That sounds great to me.
So does that mean that the runoff ran into the brook from Tremont Street, but it's gone beyond probably town property, and so that's what you're talking about? It's on private property?
Yeah, I mean, during the storm event, it was observed in the stream, but obviously, it's really hard to track silt.
Yeah.
Silt, there's silt in the stream naturally. So yeah, we're talking about the silt along the road in the area where Mr. Ferry's crew cleaned up and added some riprap.
Okay, Mr. Moorhead, for all intent and purposes, as of right now today, is all the work that needed to be done completed as far as construction and all that other stuff?
Yep, that is correct. All that's really left to do is just some minor commissioning, things like that, but no major earthwork, no major construction left to do on that project.
How about site stabilization?
So we did do some dormant seeding in the fall. I was out on site last week. It does look like that is taking very well. And we'll kind of assess that over the next few weeks here and do any spot seeding we need to do come around April 15th as the start of seeding season.
Oh, you could seed it now, I think, but
Yeah.
what do you think, Tom?
Yes. Should be good.
Anything else that anybody has? Mr. Aguirre?
You'll have to forgive me on this. I've missed the last couple of meetings and Mrs. Easterday and I weren't able to talk before she left. Where are we at with the as-bills for this project? Have those been submitted?
Nope. So we do have our final electrical as-built ready. The civil as-built, the survey is ongoing, and we're expecting to have those ready to issue early to mid-April.
Okay. So Jim, just to clarify, what is it you're going out there for at the request of Mr. Mullen? Because certainly we want you to review the as-bills just as you've done at the other project for compliancy with the permitted set. So are you doing multiple trips out there?
We were asked to do a site visit out there when there was flooding occurring a couple of months ago, and it was kind of an emergency request. And so that's why we went out there. We haven't been out there since, and we haven't done any work on that project since.
Okay. All right, so it's clear that we're going to follow the same procedure once the as-bills are available with this project as we did with the last, correct?
I'd have to go back and look at whatever, well, I don't think we've been asked for a proposal on that specific review. I have to go back and take a look. It's been several weeks. But I can let you know that in a few minutes.
Okay, well, I'll make it clear to the committee today that I will be looking for that.
To add to what Mr. Aguirre just said, when I mentioned to Mr. Mullen that we were going to need this review, I really focused on a report that says everything's been addressed. So we have findings. Everything's been addressed. Every board, committee, commission is okay. We can tell you stormwater from everything that's been done corrected, changed, or whatever, everything is okay now, so that you can take the action you need to notify the building commissioner. So I will speak to Mr. Mullen, and I'm sure Mr. Aguirre will, just to let him know that specifically what Stormwater is looking for, but also, as he said, the as-built and all of that, that's all the stuff that comes before, gets reviewed before Stormwater gets the final okay. So just so that nothing is left out, so to speak, and we both end up, or we all end up with what we need. So that you can put a proposal together to address what it is we're all hoping to get.
Yeah, I think, so if I could, so took a look back in our records, and in fact, what we were asked to do was a field investigation and then a report on the results of that field investigation. We completed the field investigation and were then asked to hold on the report. Since then, just yesterday, as a matter of fact, I was told verbally that we would be asked to proceed with the rest of that proposal, which again is simply a report on that field investigation. We haven't been asked to do anything further specific in terms of reviewing, peer review of permit versus as-built or any of that sort of thing at this point in time.
Okay, so obviously, we're looking forward to a report on that field visit, because you said you're going to draft it, so we haven't seen it.
Right, again, we were asked to hold off on that, and we're just verbally, very recently, yesterday, told that we would be requested to proceed with that. I haven't received the notice to proceed with that yet, so I'm waiting. Okay. I'm waiting on that for us to proceed with putting the report together.
Okay, Mr. Morehouse, I will add that when, as part of the proposal that I'm quite sure that Weston and Sampson's going to get to, I'll call it wrap everything up, there will be, the process in place is that they would look into everything, issue a report. We would meet with you and whoever is appropriate. And there would also be a site visit before the final documentation was issued, just so that if anyone has questions and we're on site and whatever, we'll get all of that taken care of. So again, there will be a draft report, a site visit, whatever, just so that everything comes together and that final okay to Stormwater can be issued, okay?
Nancy, do we need a motion for that, to request that?
No, that's all in the process. The process that was put in place when the decision was made to hire an outside engineering firm, Mr. Mullen set up a procedure, and anyone who feels they need a review of whatever is just supposed to contact him and give him an indication of what it is and why it is necessary. I think the visit that Mr. Reardon's talking about came about because we had the heavy rains, we had the berm break, and we had the silt and the runoff and all that other stuff. And as he said, it was more of an emergency thing. Can you look at this right away? So following the process that's been put in place to have Weston and Sampson do engineering services, I just follow the approved procedure that had been set up. Because they're all automatic. Stormwater can't come up with that final approval to give to the building commissioner. That we will vote on. Once we get the report, we will have an official vote that we have it's been reviewed, we have engineering report, recommendation, whatever, and we vote to accept it and notify the building commissioner, we're all set. So that's how we're going to handle all of them when we get to that stage.
Yeah, if I could, typically we get a request and it's usually in writing, an email. we often get told about it in advance, but the request to put together a proposal is, you know, a written email. And if what we're doing is reviewing materials, data, reference reports, whatever, then we get those at that time too. So that when we're putting our proposal together, we know exactly what it is that we're reviewing, so we can give you, you know, a good solid quote on the amount of hours that it'll take, or, you know, the cost. And we have some record of having been asked to do this. And, you know, generally save that down in our files so that, you know, 3 months later when we're talking about it, like we're talking about some things that happened prior to Christmas right now, I'm able to go back and look through our materials and say like, yep, this is specifically what we were asked to do. This is why we did what we did. Because it can get pretty confusing otherwise.
So basically, all the procedure was put in place so that no one would directly approach Weston and Sampson and say, hey, I need you to do an engineering study of whatever. Because Mr. Mullen is the, if you will, contact between the town and the engineering firm, but also he's the person that when he gets the proposal, gets in touch with the owner of the project, indicating, sending him the proposal, telling him what it's going to cost so that the money goes into the 53G account. And all of that is done. And once the money's received, then he's the one who tells the engineers, okay, you can move ahead because we have the money. So that part's been working. Okay. Does anybody else have anything else that they want to comment on? Or questions about anything here or on screen? Okay, I think
I'm all set. I know last time we talked, there was a discussion about what is the long-term use of this land. And I have Jesse from Blue Wave. He's the agricultural manager. He is working on getting that a full detailed plan together, but sounds like it'll be a combination of grazing and crops.
Grazing and crops?
Yeah, like farm like animal grazing, cows, pigs, and then a few rows of crops.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yep, so just wanted to bring that up since I talked about it last time.
Okay, any questions? If not, we're all set. Thank you, the two Jims, and thank you, everybody else. Don't leave us, Woody. Don't leave us, Lisa. We got a couple of things to get through quickly.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 6, new business. Does anybody have anything? Number 7, unanticipated items. Does anybody have anything? Hearing none. Number 8, public input. We got a public here. Mr. Public, would you like to speak?
No, but thank you for the invitation.
Okay, no public input. Any correspondence, Mrs. Carr? No correspondence. Approval of the minutes for January 17th and February 21st. Did everybody have a chance to review them? The 17th we delayed from the February meeting because there were a couple of edits which were made. So how about, is there a motion to approve the minutes for January 17th, 2024?
So moved.
We got a motion and we have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Votes unanimous. Is there a motion for the February 21st minutes? Have you had a chance to look at them? If not, we'll defer them to the next month. I know Mr. Ferry's seen them.
I haven't had a chance, no.
Okay, so Heather, we'll put these minutes on for the April meeting. Let's see, report on expenses. I don't think we spent any money last month. No, I think we paid off our thing at Bristol Plymouth. Next is adjournment. Before we do that, is there anything that anyone can think of we need to add to the agenda? We've had other items that, for this particular agenda, we said they're not going to be included this time, but we may bring these back again. If there were things like that, we do periodic updates on. No one has anything. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I have a question, kind of a
Oh.
curiosity thing.
Oh, now we're back to public input.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, you-
Excuse me for being out.
You gotta come up to the podium, Mr. Rosa.
David. Anyway. Good afternoon. Thank you to everyone for attending and doing the business that you do on behalf of the residents. At a last Board of Selectmen meeting, there was some talk about renewing your membership with MME, I believe. A, I'm sorry. So I was just wondering if MMA has responded. And so I hope they responded in the positive, but I haven't heard anything about
Okay,
it.
I'm gonna have to say it's not appropriate input for this committee.
All right, okay, that's fine.
To the best of my knowledge, there hasn't been a response. But I would say check with the Board of Selectmen or, because it was their agenda item,
Okay, thank you.
okay? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So move.
We got a motion, is there a second? We got a second, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Mr. Ferry shaking his head no.
Aye.
You can stay.
It's 2:46 PM according to that screen. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Nancy.
Okay,
So Nancy, I'm.
oh, you gotta.
It's on it now.
Tom, how do you kill it so it's not recording? Have a good day, everybody. The voice has got to tell us.
Just end it.
Oh, I just wanted to hear what Jim had to say.
No, wait a minute.